Luka Doncic and Slovenia ended their group play in Japan with a 100-71 loss against Germany. In this game, Luka Doncic began hot, and Slovenia had a double-figure advantage. He had scored 12 points in the first quarter alone, which was actually more than Germany's whole team, but the momentum strongly shifted for the remainder of the game. Doncic had finished with 23 points, 6 rebounds, 6 assists, and 2 steals. He had 3 turnovers, shot 9 of 22, 41%, 7 of 11 on 2s, 64%, but was 2 for 11 from 3, 18%, and 3 of 5 on free throws, which was 60%. And Slovenia as a team was outscored by a staggering 89-46 margin after the first quarter to the end of regulation. Dennis Schroeder had a very impressive game with 24 points. He was 73% from the floor. He was perfect on his 2s, 4 for 7 from 3, 57% overall, and had 10 assists. And Germany as a team shot very efficiently across the board. They were 35 of 64 overall, 55%, 20 of 33 on 2s, 61%, 15 of 31 on 3s, 48%, and 15 of 17, which was 88% on free throws. I'm going to dive into the film of what worked and what didn't work for both Germany and Slovenia throughout this game and have some takeaways ahead of the rest of the World Cup. It was clear from the start that Germany was going to be content with switching against Doncic and making him work for his scoring opportunities as opposed to sitting back in a blitzing scheme or a double team and allowed Slovenia to play in a 4-on-3 just like Australia did. The goal here was for Slovenia to make Schroeder have to be in the action. They brought up his man to screen. He switched onto Doncic, and Doncic used his size to get into the paint and score. One of the themes in this game was Doncic settling for step-back threes too much against bigs on switches. That seemed to be a cause later on due to being physically taxed due to a physical matchup and playing his 5th game in 10 days. Slovenia continued to put the small guards man into a cross-screening action for Doncic to get the ball in the post. If the defense doesn't switch this, then he gets a quick post touch against a defender that has to recover and had to give up deep positioning. And here, Isaac Bonga fights to go over the screen, recovers, but Doncic utilizes his size advantage to bully his way into the paint for a right-handed finish. A common issue for Slovenia's defense in this game was being exploited by Germany's use of multiple screeners in a ball screening action. Here they go with a double drag screen that ends in Schroeder finding the roller for a dunk. The bigs, when they would play close to the level of the screen, would require the weak side defense, which often involved Luka Doncic to have to make a play, recovering, tagging, accounting for the rollers, and that doesn't tend to happen often, with Doncic usually being on the weakest shooter and sort of staying in his own little zone. And in this play, the weak side corner is occupied by a shooter, and the priority for Slovenia was to stay home as opposed to make a low man rotation. Here, Slovenia utilized a decoy screening action with the shooter and 2 bigs on the weak side to get a clear out for Doncic in the post. And Bonga was very aggressive, trying to front the post and make Doncic have to make this catch further out. And he ends up doing that much further than on that first post-up he had in this game against him. And Doncic still manages to make a play. He makes an inside move, spins to the baseline, and then gets deep into the paint using his size and just finishes with his right hand and gets an and one. Here, Slovenia gets taken advantage of by Germany in a screening action that involves multiple players. Once again, this time it's a stack or Spain pick and roll play. And with the big allowing the roller to get behind the play, Schroeder ends up throwing a lob pass with the low man not cutting this off, and the end result is a dunk. Slovenia used a very intentional approach to try to get Bonga switched off of Doncic once again. Here he starts out in the corner. They use a pin down. He ends up getting a rescreen from Toby to ultimately get Bonga to switch after he had fought around 2 screens, and this ends up resulting in Doncic having an isolation against a mismatch. He breaks down the defender, attacks middle, but he ends up not having an advantage deep on this drive. He doesn't really have too much space to work with. He ends up getting in a baseline jumper, and the shot is short and rims out. Slovenia was aggressive, playing out in transition in this next possession after forcing a miss at the rim on a lob pass. The ball ends up popping around a little bit. Doncic ends up finding a mismatch against Schroeder in the post. The bigger offensive player is able to just take easy advantage of a small guard here, and this ends up in a just simple finish. It was a major struggle for Slovenia to keep Schroeder out of the paint. Here he rejects a screen, attacks baseline with a flashy move that captivates the defender, and executes a tough reverse layup that just rolls right into the rim. Poor three-point shooting execution plagued Slovenia in this game. Germany ended up getting really hot while they never really found a rhythm. And on this play, Doncic gives it up. They try to get it to the post. They send a double team on the catch, and this is up to the weak side to make the defense pay for being so aggressive on the strong side. And the shot's wide open, but is short and bounces off the rim. Doncic has been aggressive throughout FIBA with attacking and semi-transition when the opportunities are available to him. Here he does, but he comes up empty on the possession by being short on the floater. Slovenia had a strong stretch here where they get a stop against a Spain pick and roll by handling the lob and rejecting the dunk attempt at the rim, and then they come down on the other end, and Zoran Dragic gets into an ISO and knocks down a pull-up three. Schroeder looked like he had a potential momentum swinging play here by getting into a catch and shoot three against a tight contest deep off the line. And what ultimately ends up happening on the other end is Doncic kind of settles things down by getting into the post again. He gets the ball against Bonga, attacks baseline, uses his size, knocks Bonga to the ground, and just gets an easy finish with no pressure at the rim. Doncic continued to make big plays. They try to run a stack pick and roll play here with the switch everything approach from Germany. This ends up being Doncic attacking a mismatch, and he just pulls up into the three and knocks it down against the contest. Here, Doncic made a miraculous play after drawing a switch and getting into a quick back down dribble. He turns the corner, gets deep into the paint, draws help from the corner, and he throws a no-look behind his head pass, one-handed to the corner, and the shot has a lot of time, but it doesn't fall. Once again, Doncic has a mismatch above the break. He gets into a quick step back three, and the shot is short as he was fading away on the release. This was an impressive play from Slovenia and Doncic. He gave the ball up early after initiating. He went into a V-cut, got the ball back, received a ball screen. Germany switched this, and knowing that there would be a smaller defender and the back line of the defense is preoccupied with shooters, Doncic turns the corner hard right, and he draws help, and the big gets behind the play, and he throws the pass over the top, which leads to a finish. This was an interesting play as well. Doncic is being guarded closely by Bonga off the ball, who denies a handoff. So the guard gets into a quick ball screen and ends up getting downhill and finding the big on the pass in the paint, which results in a finish. Here, Doncic initiates the possession, and in semi-transition, he had the favorable mismatch, and he just quickly breaks down the defender and has space to pull up, and he raises and fires, but the shot is offline. With the defense continuing to switch at the point of attack, Doncic read that Schroeder is anticipating having to account for the roller here, and he darts a quick pass to the corner to Prepelic, who attacks off the catch but is unable to come up with a successful play at the rim, and this becomes problematic as Germany takes it the other way, finds a shooter open, Doncic doesn't close out, and the shot is knocked down. This was another example of Slovenia's role players being unable to complete the play. As a play finisher, the ball ends up finding Doncic to the post. He draws a double, gets the ball out of his hands early. The ball ends up popping around the unit and finds the corner, and the shot doesn't fall. Schroeder really began to pick apart Slovenia's defense. Here he has a high ball screen, attacks the big in drop coverage downhill, uses a Euro step, and gets an easy finish. Once again, Doncic draws a big on a switch after a high ball screen, and he stays patient to force the switch, gets downhill, attacking middle of the floor, gets to that left block area with it being the open space with the big in the opposite dunker spot, kind of clogging the lane there. And he gets into a one-legged jumper, and Daniel Tice fouls him on this play, sending him to the free throw line. Even Slovenia's defensive strategy to shrink the floor by playing Doncic off of the weakest link on the three-point line, which is Bonga. Here, Schroeder trusts his teammate, makes that pass out after reading the pre-rotation, and Bonga delivers by knocking it down. Germany had wreaked havoc on this defensive possession. Slovenia took too long to get into their half-court actions. Doncic came up for the ball, and it was too late in the clock. His teammate already had got into a off-the-dribble jump shot against the top perimeter defender on the floor. This was a sequence of just showcasing a disparity in shot making. Slovenia gets an off the move catch and shoot attempt on an inbounds pass. This is a miss. And then Germany comes down the other way, sets an off ball screen for a shooter who just steps right into a shot against drop coverage and just knocks it down. Slovenia had Doncic play the off ball to begin this possession. He ends up replacing a shooter with baseline to baseline movement, and Slovenia sets an exit screen for him. He comes off the screen quickly, receives the ball, turns the corner, and then he has a big on the switch who he then attacks with a between-the-legs dribble to attack to the outside, going right, and then he has to protect the ball from the help defender after winning that little sequence there, and then uses a reverse finish to do so. Doncic remained intentional to get Bonga switched off of him. Here he ends up bringing a screener back after the switch doesn't occur initially, and he ends up getting into a step back against the switch, and the shot doesn't convert. Germany did an effective job of communicating against Slovenia's screening actions. Here, Toby sets a screen for Doncic. He slips the screen, and while this was developing, there was a shooter that was cutting through after setting that initial ball screen that Doncic had rejected. And Doncic thought the pass would have a window to be executed using a bounce pass, and this ended up getting stolen because of the proper communication. Example of Slovenia struggling to generate quality rim pressure by non-Doncic perimeter players. Here, Prepelic attacks from the wing and tries to attempt a reverse layup and gets stifled at the rim. Part of the issue with the Germany matchup that Slovenia faced was the difference in front court skill. Here there's a big-to-big sequence where there's an attack from the perimeter, help is drawn, and then a pass to the baseline for a short corner jumper, and the shot falls. Doncic remained intent on getting Bonga switched off of him, and this time it took very long before Slovenia got into a screening action that actually got that switch to occur. He ended up having about 6 seconds against a big and tried to break him down off the dribble, wanted to attack middle but didn't have enough time, and got into a turnaround jump shot off one leg as the buzzer sounded and the shot didn't fall. It continued to be a problem for Slovenia to contain Schroeder out in space, and then especially to account for play-finishing bigs that have touch in the paint that were able to just complete plays on passes after Schroeder had drawn defensive attention. After a teammate missed a shot and the unit recovered the offensive possession, Doncic made a play downhill, attacking a defense that was looking to recover. He sliced through the defense and played through contact with the defender attempting to take a charge, and he put up a falling one-handed floater and converted the attempt. It was too easy for Germany to attack the paint, and on this play, they ended up taking a wide approach, beating 2 defenders on the sideline, and then Doncic is responsible for the entire back end of the defense, and he kind of just stands there, and Schroeder gets the catch-and-shoot jump shot and knocks it down. This was an interesting approach from Germany to counter Doncic after drawing a big on a switch. Schroeder had come up to the play to act as if he was going to send a late double, but didn't commit to it, and that threw off Doncic's rhythm. He attacked left, and he was kind of stuck along the baseline, threw a spray-out pass with the low man not staying home on the shooter, and the pass was a tough one to make and was offline. Schroeder's jumper was falling at a high clip. Here he has a drop coverage, just gets into a simple mid-range jumper and knocks it down. Schroeder continued to put a lot of pressure on Slovenia by making tough jump shots. Here he's deep off the line, has a contest, and still just knocks it down. Slovenia played out of a delay zoom action here to get Doncic the ball, but this was an intriguing outcome here. He ends up getting the switch at the point of attack, and what ends up happening here is Toby ends up setting a Gortat screen on essentially both ball screen defenders in this play, which doesn't typically happen, and Doncic was able to get deep on the drive and then end up finishing this play with the reverse. This sequence was a testament to the disparity in difficulty for the two teams attacking in the half court in this game. Germany set a wide pin down for a big-to-big action here. The big comes off of the screen, catches the ball, and throws a lob to the cutter, who put the defense into position to have the big with under 10 seconds left on the shot clock. The screener that received the ball that popped out to the three-point line didn't quickly attack and ultimately was bottled up along the sideline, had nowhere to go with it, and just chucked the ball to beat the shot clock and airballed. Containing dribble penetration was, once again a problem here for Slovenia. Bonga attacks using a ghost screen, hard right, gets to the rim and finishes through contact. The back and forth between the two teams and shooting execution once again was on display here. Doncic attacked along the sideline, drew two defenders, passed it out to a pop threat who was above the break and had a wide open shot, and the shot didn't fall. Then Schroeder comes down the other end of the floor, stays patient, attacks the middle of the floor, and then finds a trailing big, uses soft touch, and knocks it down. Things really unraveled for Slovenia here. Bonga went over a screen and ended up prying the ball loose from behind against Doncic and then had a breakaway dunk. This ended up putting Germany up 17 points. Germany continued to essentially out-execute Slovenia when executing half-court actions. Here, Slovenia starts out in a corner pin-in screen. Schroeder handles this masterfully, blocks the corner three attempt, and then Germany comes down on the other end and scored. A big difference between these two teams is that even when a play did not necessarily create an advantage for Germany, they stayed patient and active off the ball. And here Bonga cuts to the middle of the floor, makes himself available as a relief option, catches the ball against a smaller defender, and just finishes in the paint. Slovenia's offense continued to be clunky down the stretch of this quarter, and here Doncic had a switch, stayed patient to force the commitment of the switch, and then just gets into a quick step back three along the sideline. It's a tough shot, and it doesn't fall. This was a great approach from Germany here. They noticed that Slovenia is loading up at the point of attack, one pass away, fully rotated over to contain Schroeder, who has the ball top of the key, and in this instance, they just stay active off the ball. The big cuts through, and then all of a sudden, there was nobody in position left to account for the shooter. Schroeder just darts the ball to him, and they knock it down. Once again, Doncic had to work to break down a switch out on the perimeter, and with the non-shooting big in the middle of the floor, there wasn't much room for him to operate, and this time Germany stunts at the nail to force him to pick up his dribble, and he has to make a tough, awkward angled falling away floater over a big who is tightly contesting, and the attempt is offline. Here, Doncic draws a switch on another high ball screen from the big, and in this instance, he ends up getting into a quick step back three before the defender fully steps up to check him, and he ends up knocking the shot down against the contest. Doncic looked to attack aggressively in transition after the grab-and-go board here. He gets Daniel Tice on the ISO, attacks left, and makes contact, throws the ball up, and gets to the free throw line. An intriguing approach from Slovenia against Dennis Schroeder as the on-ball defender and ball screen coverage. The plan here throughout the game has been to switch, so Slovenia knew that, and the screener gets a great seal on Schroeder, and Doncic finds him on a entry pass, lobs it high, and the big protects the ball, plays through contact, and finishes at the rim. Slovenia set a screen for Doncic at midcourt, which drew a soft switch and had Wagner guarding Doncic early on. He gets into a step-back three on the left wing, a shot he really likes, and the look just doesn't fall. Germany often had an answer for Slovenia whenever they had some momentum going, and here the level of shot making was just impressive. They knocked down a turnaround jumper out of the post. There's really not much you can do when a team's playing at that level. Spacing was a problem for Slovenia in this game numerous times. Doncic had a mismatch like he has Wagner here. He breaks him down off the bounce. And with the big man just stationed, parked in the paint, there wasn't really room for Doncic to use his quickness to break down the defender and to get into any counter moves. He just has to get into open space and puts up a floater falling away. And this is a tough shot. It banks off the glass and doesn't fall. Down 16, Slovenia strung together a couple of positive plays. Doncic brought the ball up in transition, found a shooter. The teammate attacked downhill and just pulled up a little bit past the elbow and converted the jumper. And then they ended up coming down on the other end of the floor and getting a stop against Wagner, attempting to make a play in the middle of the floor, one-on-one. And they closed the possession with the ball going out of bounds. He just couldn't quite string together a substantial enough run. Here, they had an opportunity to continue to build momentum. Doncic finds a shooter stepping into his shot in rhythm, in transition. He fails to convert, and then the big grabs the rebound and gets stifled at the rim. And then Germany comes down on the other end, finds a shooter wide open, and they knock it down. Germany continued to trust their defenders out on an island and their philosophy at large that having Doncic break them down on isolation opportunities would be the most effective strategy. And here, Doncic gets into another step back three, and the shot doesn't fall. It continued to be too easy for Schroeder just to win at the point of attack. He wins at a spin move, turns the corner, and then just finds a big in the dunker spot to throw a quick drop-off pass to. The initial finish attempt was a miss, but Germany had another big in the paint. They get the rebound, and it's an easy putback. There's another shortcoming from Slovenia offensively. Doncic trusted his teammates, passed the ball to the post, and then there was a double team on the catch with the attempt to recover to prevent the early attack middle with Schroeder guarding the bigger player. And with this happening, the weak side cutter was able to get a little bit behind the play in time to make a catch, but just went straight into a finish attempt where the big was in a perfect position to just block and blow up the play. Here was a little bit of spark of momentum for Slovenia, but, given the game context, it was already too far out of reach when this happened. Doncic blew up a pass as the low defender, and they come down the other end of the floor and get into a quick catch-and-shoot three. The reason why this game was arguably too out of reach at this point was because Germany immediately went down and knocked down a catch-and-shoot three without Slovenia tightly contesting. They just had an answer for just about anything Slovenia did to make a push. Doncic wasn't on the floor for much longer as this was his final offensive possession. Mike Tobey had possession of the ball, and this kind of tops it all off here. He gets the ball stolen, operating out of a delay action, and then Germany just comes down the other end of the floor with it.